Call to order the Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers regular meeting. We are at the Shoreview City Hall Council.
Recording in progress.
Today is Wednesday, March 27th, 2024, and it is 9 a.m. Let the record reflect that four of us are present in the building, and Steve Wagaman is attending due to snow incapacity at his home, but he's here with us, joining on Zoom. We've had a discussion, he will be able to participate except for voting. So with that, set the agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
Staff have no changes.
Does anyone else? Can I have a motion, please?
So move.
I'll second John. Approval of the minutes. Manager Robertson, would you do us a favor?
I would be most happy to, Mr. Chair. I would move the approval of the minutes from the March 11, 2024 workshop, March 13th, 2024 regular meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 No one opposed. All right. Consent agenda, Patrick.
Yes, thank you, President Bradley. First, staff have 3 applications for your consideration on the consent agenda, and then separately we'll have an additional application with a variance request.
So does anyone have any questions to Patrick, not about the variance request, but about the 3 consent items? No questions. Can I have a motion then to approve or accept whatever the consent agenda with regard to the 323-010, 24-004, and 24-005? Go ahead, John. I'm looking for a motion.
Well, Mr. President, I'll move that the consent agenda for permit applications of 23-010, 24-04, and 24-005, as outlined in the above table of contents in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District's engineers' findings and recommendations dated March 30th, 2024 and March 19th, 2024, respectively.
I'll second that. Any discussion, any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 No opposed. Patrick, I believe that brings us then to the variance request.
Yes, President Bradley. So the variance request is from Anoka County Parks. This is the Rice Creek Chain of Lakes Park Reserve roadway. It's a very long linear access road, essentially. It doesn't technically meet the definition in our rules for a public linear roadway. So the request here is for their water quality treatment within our rule. The area not treated cannot exceed 15%. They are unable to treat the entirety of the roadway due to its long linear feature. They'd have to raise it in certain areas, and they don't have the space and ability to do so with wetlands nearby, public waters, and things like that. So the request is, what's the specific rule? Rule C6E.
Are there any questions to Patrick? All right. Can I have a motion then?
Oh, we're having a slow morning here this morning, so I'll just go ahead and jump in and make this motion. I move to approve the variance request for variance application 23-079 as outlined in accordance with the Rice Creek Watershed District's engineer variance technical memorandum dated March 20, 2024.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Not all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Passes.
And now we need to approve the permit.
Yeah, approve the permit.
All right.
Mr. President, I'll move to approve the permit 2379 as outlined in the Rice Creek Watershed District engineers' findings and recommendations dated March 20th, 2024.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, open mic.
Open mic. Oh, thank you. Anyone on the phone care to make a presentation to us? This is a period in which people are welcome to talk to us about issues they have that are not otherwise on the agenda. Hearing no one speak, I'll assume that we're good to go. So what is the next item?
Yes, Board of Managers, next are your items requiring board action. And first we have Houston Engineering Task Order 24-002 that deals with your rule revision, and Patrick will speak to that.
Yes, thanks, Nick. So at the March workshop, we gave a presentation about the rule revision process. We talked about what we did last time, the success of that last rule revision, the goals of the rule revision, what we're looking for this time, a sample of some of the things that we'll be reviewing and ultimately proposing. So this task order from Houston Engineering is for assistance in the rule revision process. So going through and assessing the items we'd like to review, proposing draft rule language, and then assisting with guidance documents and implementation of the rule ultimately for our expected January 1st, 2025 implementation. So happy to answer any questions here. There is a task order 2024-002 in the amount to not exceed $36,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patrick or Chris, the CAPROP items that we had earlier, as well as this variance application, would what you're proposing have affected any of these issues?
So at this point, we have a list of, 30-some, 40-some items that we want to look at. I'm sure we won't get to all of them, but that is one of the considerations is our definition of a public linear project. It's a rather short sentence at this point. We have some internal ways of already administering that, including right-of-way, but that's not explicitly in the language. So that is something that we're anticipating looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, I don't have a question so much as a comment. Patrick, as you know, at the workshop, I was still concerned about the extent of the rules and maybe having them more brief, minimized, allowing the cities to take over those situations, which they have the MS4 authority for, even though it might not be as uniform throughout the district, so that hopefully that the resources we spend in rules then could be channeled more towards the maintenance of the stormwater conveyance system, which is really our primary purpose. And so it's I look forward to seeing some of those as duplication unnecessary. And like I say, more, because we have these huge projects when we go to fix the stormwater system, it costs multiple millions of dollars because we haven't done the maintenance on a regular basis. And so I'm looking forward to seeing if we can use those resources that we have in less regulatory and more maintenance to the system.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. President.
that, of course, is your view and does not necessarily represent that of the majority of the board.
We don't know that yet, sir.
As I said,
We'll
does
see
not-
what the
does not
rules-
necessarily, that's it.
It doesn't.
So, Nick, if I may ask, what will we do to involve our partners, the cities who are affected by our rules, in the process of doing this review and making proposed changes to these rules?
Yes, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, district staff have a number of engagements with city staff already in regards to the rules that we have in their administration, and out of those conversations come some comments that are already in the materials to be considered. Of course, we'll continue with that, and those will be within the materials we bring forward. But then also, of course, they'll have the public comment period by which to comment further.
And if I could additionally, so another thing we're looking at this time around is an early comment period too. So that would, start probably here in a couple of weeks. so that we can also mention it during the city-county partner meeting. So if there's things that our partners would like to share before we do even any draft rule language, we could get that early feedback.
Great. Mr. President, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. It has to do with the disturbance. Our rule currently says 10,000 square feet, you need a permit, whereas the minimum requirement by the state is 1 acre. So that generates a lot of permits, time, effort, energy here. When we don't take, as where with the ditch system, we take the minimum approach there, whatever the state's minimum is we have. But here with the regulatory part, we take an approach where we're far more detailed and create work. And it's not our primary focus because that belongs to the cities. But
Yes, Board of Manager, I'll make note of your watershed management plan. Yes, the district's rule for erosion control is at 10,000 square feet. That's to prevent sediment from entering the surface waters that we work to maintain or improve their quality. I'll note that the district's expended large amounts of money to excavate sediment. Long Lake sediment basement comes to mind. And so this is a prevention as areas become developed, and it's also correction, if you will, of the sins of the past in areas where we don't have these stormwater treatment basins ahead of their discharge to the surface waters.
In other words, if we change it, we would have a negative consequence on our ditches.
Mr. President,
I asked him a question.
Manager Bradley, yes, that would be our approach to date, is to prevent those things from occurring.
Okay, John.
So, Mr. President, that rule happens to really apply to the cities. And they're the ones that are in charge of that. So say it has a negative rule effect on our ditches. Well, we've been cleaning out that pond for Long Lake for years and years and years. It's, in fact, the last time it got to be $1.5 million almost, wasn't it? Pretty close to that, Mr. President?
It was.
Yes, it was outrageous. And so I'm not so certain that all these actual rules, as you put, that we're going to contain the sediment, from away from the stormwater system, have been effective.
Nick?
It's a debate that'll never stop, I understand.
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, I'll make note that your governance is to address the surface waters. You've developed the watershed management plan, the three-legged stool, if you will. The rules are a major component of that to address the sedimentation and such. There is you set the standard by which you work to achieve those goals, those being the rules. The municipalities, there is within your watershed management plan the opportunity for any given city to take up that effort on its own. But regardless of that, you have set the standard, and it is what it is at this time.
So, Mr. President, the water management plan is a flexible document, and it can change. And if it is maybe overbearing, let's say, and taking an aggressive approach where it's not necessary, it could be reined in.
Mr. Chair. Thank you so very much. I'm just going to reiterate kind of what I said in the workshop. I don't have a problem with rule revisions and regulatory revisions. I think that's necessary. My fundamental philosophy on rules is I don't like them because in most cases they're one size fits all. And sometimes that doesn't allow us the flexibility to be that good partner, whether it's to municipalities or permit applicants. Rules are really a tool. They're not to be weaponized, and I don't think that's what's being inferred here. But I do think again, I'm fine with structure. My assumption is, Patrick, I've only been here for a year or so. You don't seem like the type of gentleman who puts his foot in the ground and leaves his ball at the playground when there's a disagreement. So it seems to me, just by your own work product and what I've seen, that there is somewhat that flexibility. It's that one size fits all thing that really bothers me. I don't like that part of it. I have no problem with, the rules need to be revised. They're antiquated, they don't apply anymore, or whatever the case may be, but I would ask for an undertone of flexibility. I know that is allowed, through variance and things like that, but just keep that first and foremost. At the end of the day, we're in the customer service business, right? And 9 times out of 10, when there is some of this going on with a permit, it's personal, there's feelings involved, and it gets nasty. So I guess my undertone ask would just be that we please allow that vein of flexibility. I get there are going to be situations where there are hard no's and hard yeses as it relates to wetland conservation acts or whatever federal or state governance or rule supersedes our ability to do anything that we want to do. So that would be my only contention with that. I don't like rules. Structure, yes. Rules, no.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I'll call the question,
That would be a good idea.
and I'll make the motion to move to authorize the board president to execute Houston Engineering Incorporated Task Order 2024-002 for technical support in administering the 2024 rule and regulatory program revision in the amount not to exceed $36,000.
I will second that. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0. So, I see we have met. Mr. Koshin.
Yes, Board President, Board of Managers, next on your agenda is the Centerville Lake Alm project and the release, the request for quotes. Matt's going to address that.
Okay, members of the board, thank you for having me here today. We are continuing on with the Centerville Lake Alum project. The next step being the release for the request for quotes. That is the memo that you have in front of you. I apologize, Nick, can you tell me what page the memo is on?
54.
54. Thank you. Okay. Yep, the memo there lays out the background of the project. You'll recall that the district was awarded a sizable grant, sizable Clean Water Fund grant to fund the majority of this project. We were noted of the award of this project. Did I get the page number wrong? Sorry.
61. Matt.
61.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I misheard. I was in confusion. Give you all a second to get to the right page. Apologies. Okay. Clean Water Fund grant, notified of the grant award late last calendar year. We've been working very quickly to develop the grant work plan, execute the grant work plan, have those funds in place. You'll recall that we've hired Bar Engineering to act as the project engineer for this project. They were the ones that helped us develop some of the feasibility work for the grant application, and they'd done some of the feasibility work even prior to that, doing some of the sediment work in Centerville Lake. So I've got a few slides here to run through some of the key components of the specifications that would be going out in this request for quotes. I mentioned that we are on a speedy timeline here. We are proposing to do the first alum application this spring, a little more than a month from now, about a month and a half. So we are looking at approving the release for the request for quotes today. The deadline for those quotes would be April 11th. April 24th, I would be back in front of the board here reviewing those quotes and seeking an approval of a contract for this work. And then the alum application could begin somewhere around May 8th with a pretty hard deadline of May 23rd. That's a couple days before Memorial Day weekend, and we really want to have the treatment done before then. This is an aggressive schedule. That's somewhat, no, that's incorrect, not somewhat. That is driven by the grant window. These Clean Water Fund grants are a 3-year window. Really, the best way to proceed with an alum treatment like this is with a split dose. We've talked about that before. Instead of putting the alum all in at once, we're doing a split dose, one in 2024 That gives us the summer of 2025 to collect sediment cores and adjust our application strategy if need be. And then the second portion of the alum dose will go in 2026. So because the grant is a 3-year window, it puts us on this speedy timeline to start getting things done this year. I'll note that the specifications and the request for quote that's going out now covers this entire grant window. So we're not seeking quotes for 2024 and then seeking quotes again in 2026. This would be for the entirety of the project. All right, talked about the schedule. Some of the details of the alum application itself. All of the areas of Centerville Lake deeper than 10 feet would be receiving alum, and it's all the same dose. Centerville Lake doesn't have very complex bathymetry. It's kind of just a big bowl, but it is the deeper parts of the lake, primarily deeper than 10 feet, where the problem is. That's where most of the sediment phosphorus is coming out. So we're not treating shallower areas of the lake. In addition to targeting the areas of the lake with the highest phosphorus release, alum doesn't work quite as well in shallower waters. There's more of a chance of it being mixed up with boat traffic and fish and things like that. So the target area is deeper than 10 feet. The access route, you can see kind of on the left-hand side of this map here, there's the roadway and then the boat launch. Patrick just mentioned this with the variance for Anoka County Parks redoing that roadway. This is our primary access route and our primary staging area shown here. There's a little bit of a difficulty now in 2024 because Anoka County Parks is reconstructing that roadway. So we've been talking with them frequently about how we can accommodate this project. But nevertheless, we're going to need to find some flexibility as we're moving forward here. I'll note that this issue, this potential conflict with construction really is just in 2024 and 2026, the second half. That's not an issue. Here's a zoomed in look of the boat launch. Again, this is the primary access point and staging area for the alum treatment. So this is where the alum barge that applies the alum would be launched, and then the staging area would hold some temporary tanks that hold the alum. So aluminum sulfate delivered in tanker trucks, pumped into large tanks in that area, and then the tanks get pumped out into the alum application barge. So we do have an alternate access route or access point and staging area, but they're separate. Now instead of being in one point, these alternate areas are different. And you can kind of make this out on the right-hand side or the eastern side of Centerville Lake here, but I'll zoom in so you can see each of these separately. The alternate staging area where the tanks would go is actually on land owned by St. Paul Regional Water Services. That's that green hatched area there going up to the shoreline. Perhaps you can see my cursor. There's a building here. This used to be a pump house for St. Paul Regional Water Services, and they have a hard-packed gravel driveway next to it. They've given us permission to use that area for staging if we need to. The alternate access area for the boat, a little bit trickier. So the idea here would be using a crane to lift the boat from the roadway down into Centerville Lake. We're identifying this in the specifications because we want to have an alternate route identified. This is possible to do. It's been done on other alum projects in the state, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic that we won't need to use this route. In our discussions with the Anoka County Parks, both parties are optimistic that we're going to be able to get a truck and a trailer through the construction area. So hopeful that we won't have to use this access route. This alternate access route will require a separate bidding line in the quotation document submitted by the applicator. So if they don't use this alternate access route, then we don't pay the extra dollars that it would cost to bring in a crane and launch it from the roadway. Now we're on to the cost components, and this is about as simplified as an engineer's estimate and cost can be. There's really only 2 line items that go into an alum application. There is the aluminum sulfate itself, and I'll note that the unit costs and the total cost here is an applied cost. This is not just the cost for the product itself, but the cost to apply 389,092 gallons of alum, about $2.59 per gallon. That's the engineer's estimate. And I'll note at the top there, the engineer's estimate is the same as the grant estimate, is the same as the feasibility study. So because all of this work was done in a fairly tight time frame, Bar Engineering was the one that helped us develop the original feasibility. That was about a year ago. That was what went into the grant application, and that is now the engineer's estimate. So these are fresh numbers that we're working with here. The mobilization here, that's the only other line item is mobilization. Two of those, one for 2024, one for 2026. Those could, this was what was estimated in the grant. Those could inch slightly higher again if we have to use the alternate access, especially for launching the boat.
If you look behind you, can you clear so we can see that?
Oh, yes. Apologies. Let's see that. There we go. Thank you, thank you. Oh, come on.
The mouse that's up there?
Oh, this one. Come on. There we go.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that note. I could see it, so.
Yeah. I assume that.
Okay. Yes, so those are the two line items. I'll give you a chance now to look at those since you didn't see them before. I'll also note that the budget that we've talked about internally at past board meetings and at board workshops does include a 5% contingency. So in all the budgeting work that we've done here to prepare for this project, we do have some extra dollars set aside as contingency, which is typical for all large projects that we work on. A couple of other notes from the specifications, looking at my memo here. Let's see. Yep, okay. There are, of course, the Bar Engineering Company has developed these specifications. They do have other tasks that they're working on over the course of the project. One of those is oversight of the alum applicator during the project. So for example, they have very tight specifications for the product. The product is, I think what I've heard it referred to before is food grade aluminum sulfate that meets American Water Works standards for aluminum sulfate application. There's also some restrictions as it relates to the application of alum in unfavorable conditions. So for example, water temperatures need to be at least 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and we want to see winds below, it says 20 here, we actually just adjusted the specification so it's 15 miles an hour. So we don't want to be applying alum on very windy days. There's a section in the specifications on contractor qualifications. This is sometimes referred to in other specifications as a responsible bidder requirement. In this case, we're looking for an applicator that has experience working on projects of this size and scale. They need to have the ability to apply a fairly large amount of alum in any single day, at least 20,000 gallons per day. That's to ensure that the application window is fairly small, so we don't end up applying alum over the course of the whole summer. There's a couple of negatives there. One is then we're starting to interfere more with recreational activity. Two, then it means we're getting less of the alum down into the sediments quickly, which is what we want. We want the alum to create that flock and get down into the sediment layer as quickly as possible. A long, drawn-out alum application, we can't achieve that. So there's a number of points in contractor qualifications to ensure that this is a responsible applicator and a good applicator. I'll go back up to the timeline here so we can see that again. But I have a motion at the bottom of the memo there. This is moving to direct Bar on advice of council to release the request for quotes for the Centerville Lake Alum project. Legal counsel has received and reviewed these specifications already. Bar has already made most of those edits, so we're really just tidying them up. But we're hoping to release them as soon as possible, perhaps tomorrow or Friday before the end of this week.
So, Matt, if I could ask a question. Initially, you planned on having the March 24th for approving release, and we're 3 days behind. Do you need to move any of your other deadlines?
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was writing that on the 24th. It is today. It is
Okay.
the 27th. Apologies. Yes,
No.
that is today, the 27th. Thank you.
Are there other questions of Matt? If not, I would move to approve or direct
Bar.
I'm just move to direct Bar on advice of council to release the request for quotes for the Centerville Lake Alum project.
I second that.
Any discussion?
So, Mr. President, I just want to emphasize, Matt, there's a couple of words you used during your presentation, that the specifications for the alum treatment are to be food quality. Is that correct?
I did, yeah, Manager Waller, I didn't lift that directly from the spec. I've heard it referred to that in the past. I'm quite certain that it says that it must meet the American Water Works standards for aluminum sulfate application.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I'm not always a great fan of chemical treatments, but when you make that emphasis, it tells us that we're going to have a dosage that's safe. And I know from my experiences of touring sanitation facilities that use alum treatments on it, they make a great deal of pride in telling the public at the tours that they take out 95% of it before they put it back into the water systems of the rivers. And so they say that they actually take out greater than 95, but they don't want to get caught up in the gotcha game of maybe one day it wasn't quite that much. But so that's why I wanted, when you use those words, I wanted to reemphasize that this is a safe use of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just again highlight that this project is a result of a competitive clean water grant. This is in addition to the watershed-based implementation funding that the Clean Water Council / Bowser appropriates to each watershed. So again, kudos to you, Matt, and those that assisted with this application, because it was the highest competitive grant that was reviewed and awarded. So thank you.
Thank you, Manager Weiner.
Nice job. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I would just add too that you have a public meeting on this on April 11th.
Yes, Manager Weiner, thank you for bringing that up. We are having a public meeting on April 11th. Notice of that meeting has been mailed out with postcards to all residents of the lake. We're also promoting it on all of our social media. The City of Centerville is helping us promote it, so we're hoping for a good turnout.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
And I noticed we've all received an invitation also. I have it on my calendar.
I do too.
So, you'll want to notice that, Nick, that we may have
Yes.
done. There you go. Thank you. I believe this takes us to the check register.
Yes.
Marcy?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the check register dated March 27th, 2024 in the amount of $326,434.98. I have reviewed that as well as the March interim financial statement prepared by Redpath and Company.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Let's take us, the staff reports.
Correct.
Anyone have questions about the staff reports?
I do, Mr. Chair. The iron enhanced sand filters, how are they doing? I saw that mentioned in a couple staff reports about some attention that was needed.
Yes, Manager Wynett, Board of Managers, you have 3 iron enhanced sand filters. One, you're in cooperation with the City of Roseville. The one in the township of
Like your link.
White Bear Lake, thank you. Water flow elevations play a role in their functionality and that sort of thing, but we'll be looking to install the pumps and bring them up online. The Roseville one had a cracked pipe or a broken pipe that was being explored, so we can uncover it and rectify that situation. Again, that will be with Roseville. And then the one at Hanson Park as well. It's just maintenance as usual, I'll say, to apply the pumps in place. And then you'll remember Ashley came forth with a contract for maintenance on the vegetative condition and the tilling of the beds. So it's not by gravity, so you got to pay attention to the mechanical aspect of it.
So it just reinforces the fact that what do we call those? Our
Facilities?
facilities need continual inspection
Yes.
And maintenance,
and maintenance, yes.
Yes.
these need to have, be raked every spring. And when the cities put them in, they need to rake their own. Otherwise, the crust builds up, as I understand it, and don't work. Is that correct, Mr. Engineer? You're nodding at me, so I'm feeling secure.
Yes, that is correct. With the iron filings that are in there, they bind to the phosphorus or whatever, but they also can bind to each other or to the clumps of sand, and that's part of what that is in addition to the vegetation that grows out.
Any other comments or questions about the staff reports? Takes us to the April 2024 calendar. Anything you want to note?
Yes, Board of Managers, last page of your packet includes the calendar. Making note of the Centerville Lake Alm treatment is on there for April 11th, as Matt just noted. And then, yes, on the 24th in the afternoon, we have the City County Partner meeting in the New Brighton Community Center.
And Nick, if I understand correctly, you will have a surrogate here for the first board meeting? Are you gone on the April?
Yes, I will be gone on April 8th, which is the workshop.
Oh, the workshop.
Yep. And I will be having Matt cover that meeting. We've had good conversation about the items that are currently on that proposed agenda, and I will review those with Manager Bradley ahead of putting that packet together.
And I will note that I will be absent on the April 24th meeting. I will be touring tulips.
Wonderful.
And so, Manager Waller, you will once again step in and do your admirable job you do as the chair.
Well, Mr. President, that's yet to be seen. You never know.
We read the minutes.
I may not be there. Never know, right? One day at a time.
One day at a time. Administrative updates.
Yes, thank you, Manager Bradley. Board of Managers, a couple of updates. Preby Lake Outlet Project, known as PLOP, and also Hulls Marsh. Update there, we did meet with the Birchwood Village, that being staff, engineer, attorney. Good discussion with those folks representing Birchwood. We reviewed RCWD's Rice Creek's operation and maintenance of the system itself, our side of it, and how it's important that it be a coordinated effort between the municipalities that all that have inputs into the system, and to be good stewards of the public's money and not to misstep and compromise our efforts by having maintenance of one come after maintenance of another, et cetera. But importantly, we covered with the city or Birchwood Village the resource elements that they have an interest in down at Halls Marsh, and how we might work with them and see how we might get those addressed. We've shared with them already a number of our programs, grant programs that may be available, and we're both working towards a unified position there. I know Manager Waller was there. I'm sure he may have comments as well. Moving on to Anoka County Ditch 102232. The board directed exploration of alternative 4. Each of those components of the alternative 4 have independent utility. Usually work from the downstream condition first. So that would be the Pine Street culvert would be our first work. We have landowners that have expressed interest in that work, which of course is a district obligation to maintain those public drainage systems. So we'll work at moving that forward. We'll be coming back to the board with the Wetland Conservation Act replacement plan that our engineer has been exploring. And then we will be ready to complete that work when a contractor is available, noting, of course, the need for a board decision on that application. Further upstream, discussions continue with DNR regarding its criteria in determination of what constitutes an impact in its public waters. That remains to be seen, but again, those have independent utility and we can do the one without the other. District is moving forward to fill its positions, open positions that I made note of to you by email regarding Ramsey County Ditch 2, 3, and 5 petition that the district received. We call it I-35W mitigation, flood mitigation. In our legislative funding efforts there, we do have the Senate file 4337. We also have a House file 4944. I'm happy to report that is on its way to the Capital Investment Committee,
Excellent.
at which I will give a short presentation under its time constraints. That is to be April 3rd at 1 p.m. in the basement hearing room. They give us, you get 5 minutes. And that includes any questions they have. So it'll be a rather short emphasis on the importance of the project and then field anything that the good elected folks may be wondering.
Mr. President, Mr. Administrator, the Capitol building or the House building, State House?
Capital Committee
For-
is the House.
For which, for the hearing room?
On Wednesday, April 3rd, basement hearing room, and this is specific to the,
House bill?
correct,
Okay, they're in the Senate, State Office building then.
yeah. If I hear differently, I'll advise the board.
Better known as SOB. Which is, by the way, where I started my career, in that building. There.
I'll
So
look for your
who will-
footprints.
Who will be testifying?
I will
Okay.
be
Yep.
there.
Okay.
I plan on being there.
Okay. We'll make sure to notice it just in case we have a quorum. I have no further updates.
I have a question for,
Question? Okay, question, go ahead.
where are we at on the Ramsey County border revision and what happens here?
Yes, Manager Wynant, Board of Managers, we continue with the Ramsey County border. At this point, we've solidified the mapping, the packet of information. We'll ask each of the communities to prepare and submit to us agreement with the proposed boundary. It's almost like before you go to the state with the petition, you have to have everyone in agreement. And so we're right now working to get those letters back from the communities.
Do you have a timeline on this?
I'll look at our engineer. Do you recall if we had a specific?
We don't have anything specific, and I don't know if we've stated any sort of requested time frame to the cities to get back to us yet or not, but we will, I guess I'd have to check to see what information we have on it. Ultimately, we we can't move forward until we get the concurrence from both the cities and the adjoining watershed management organizations.
Okay.
Manager Wynant, Board of Managers, sorry, Chris, put you in the hot seat there. So good deal of cajoling to get the communities to act. They'll put it on their meetings. Those meeting dates fluctuate, their agenda items, the volume that they have, and when they find that appropriate. But we have engaged with them they know the task that we're looking for them to complete.
Okay, thank you.
John?
I attended the Birchwood Watershed meeting, I think it was a week ago Monday. It was a good meeting. A lot of things were clarified. I think both entities came away with the feeling that they were on the same team. One of the interesting things that came out from the engineering side of Birchwood was that there's a study being done at the University of Minnesota, and it has about the wetlands and how they function and their contribution of phosphorus into lakes. And so there's an opportunity here, at least I hope so. Well, I asked both engineering staff, ours and theirs, if they could kind of find this a little bit more information since it came to the Birchwood side. It sounded to me like what our CARP program was years ago, and an opportunity here for the district to participate with the university if such a study is going on, because we have a lot more places than just Halls Marsh that are phosphorus sinks that then contribute into the lakes. But that's was basically what went on there, and so I think we're moving in a positive direction to resolve this problem, which has been going on for numerous years. So it was a good meeting.
RC?
We have an audit meeting on Tuesday, April 2nd. They've completed the audit and will be doing the first review of it.
Manager Wagaman, is there anything you wanted to tell us as an update? I don't know if he's still there. Manager Robertson?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you, though.
No. And I'm really pleased to find out the House got a jacket, and it's actually going to be the first one up to actually hear something. I look forward to that, and like I say, I look forward to the meeting on the alum for Centerville, and I'm done. So I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed?
what was the time of that House hearing?
Recording stopped.